All right, so everyone wanted us to do a deep dive on Mark Holloway, and buckle up, because this one's a roller coaster.
It is.
We're talking like Wall Street cryptic voicemails,
Hmm.
a whole lot of questions around his disappearance and death.
Yeah.
But we've got your research right here, so let's get into it.
You know what strikes me right away is how this case starts off almost like mundane,
Yeah.
successful finance guy in New York City vanishes, right?
Yeah.
You think, okay, maybe he just wanted a new life.
Right.
But then, like, all the details emerge.
Yeah.
And it becomes clear that something much darker was actually going on.
Yeah, it's like one of those thriller movies where you think you know what's happening, and then bam,
Yeah.
rug pulled out from under you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we start with Mark Holloway, 31 years old, working at Grayson and Low Capital.
Okay.
From what we gather, he's living the dream, great job, nice apartment, the works. Then March 10, 2024, he just doesn't show up for work.
And what gets me is how out of character that was for him. You know, all the sources paint him as this super organized, routine-oriented guy, gym, coffee work, like clockwork.
Yeah.
So for him to just drop off the map,
Yeah.
that's a major red flag right there.
It really throws the initial assumption of a voluntary disappearance right out the window.
Yeah.
This wasn't someone running away from their life
Yeah.
at all.
Okay, so last known sighting security footage from his building shows him leaving late at night around 11:42 p.m., dressed casually. Then his phone pings near Pier 27 a little after midnight. Not exactly a bustling spot at that hour, is it? What was he doing there?
Pier 27 is a key location in all of this. It's not just where his phone last connected, but evidence later found in his briefcase suggests he was trying to meet someone there.
Right.
But before we get to that, we need to address the elephant in the room, the voicemail, the one that really kicks this whole mystery into high gear.
Yeah.
It was left for his ex-girlfriend, Emily Carter, at 3:27 a.m. And let me tell you, it's unsettling.
Oh, I got chills listening to it. You can literally hear the fear in his voice. It's like fragmented, distorted, like he's whispering and trying to stay hidden.
Yeah.
He's saying things like, not safe, don't trust following me, mistake, and then silence. What do you make of that?
Well, for starters, the timing is crucial. It coincides with his phone going dark, which suggests he knew something was about to happen.
Right.
And he was trying to get a message out. And those fragments, while incomplete, give us glimpses into his state of mind.
Yeah.
He clearly felt threatened, like he was in danger.
So did he know who was after him? Was he trying to warn Emily specifically, or was it just a desperate attempt to reach anyone who might listen?
It's hard to say for sure, but we have to consider what the police found, or rather didn't find in his apartment.
Oh, okay.
His wallet, passport, credit cards, all untouched.
Yeah.
That throws the idea of him staging his own disappearance out the window, wouldn't you say?
Totally. But then there's his computer wiped clean.
No.
No search history, no files, nothing. It's like someone went to great lengths to erase his digital footprint. What were they trying to hide?
And then we have the missing work briefcase. This, in my opinion, is what really ties this whole thing to something bigger than just a personal vendetta. This is where Grayson and Low Capital Mark's employer enters the picture.
Hold on. Remind me what was going on with them again?
The SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, was investigating the firm for insider trading.
Oh.
And it turns out Mark had requested a meeting with a federal investigator right before he disappeared.
So he was potentially about to blow the whistle on some shady dealings at his own company. That puts a whole new spin on things, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And let's not forget Ethan Kessler, the private security contractor,
Right.
with a history of corporate espionage and a knack for making problems disappear.
Yeah.
We know Mark called him right before he vanished, and then Ethan promptly disappears himself, fleeing to Argentina. It's starting to look like we're dealing with something a lot more organized and sinister here.
This is where things start to feel like a conspiracy thriller, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You've got corporate cover-ups, shady figures operating in the shadows, and a potential whistleblower who knew too much.
It's a classic setup. But the question is, how deep does this rabbit hole go? What was Mark about to expose that was worth silencing him for?
Well, to answer that, we have to dig deeper into what was inside that briefcase. Because thankfully, against all odds, it actually turned up.
You're right, the briefcase is like a total game changer.
Yeah.
Weeks after Mark disappears, it washes ashore miles from where his phone last pinged. It's almost as if whoever got rid of it wanted it found, but not right away.
Like they were sending a message or maybe trying to mislead the investigation.
Right.
Either way, it's a pretty big coincidence, don't you think?
Coincidence or not, it's what's inside that matters.
Yeah.
And it's a mixed bag. Stacks of financial reports, but with key names redacted.
Yeah.
Someone clearly wanted to point investigators in a certain direction, but not reveal the whole picture.
Yeah.
And then there's a key to a safety deposit box.
Ooh.
Its location unknown.
A secret stash? That's got to be where he kept the real dirt, right? What else was in there?
The most intriguing item was a burner phone with one unsent message. It reads, "I have proof. Meet me tomorrow, 12 a.m., Pier 27.
Wait, so Mark sent that message. He was the one trying to meet someone at Pier 27, the same place his phone went dark. But who was he meeting?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It seems Mark had uncovered something big, something incriminating, and he was trying to meet someone who could help him expose it.
Right.
Who was this mystery contact? And did they ever show up?
Well, we know from the security footage that Ethan Kessler and 2 other men were there. So maybe Mark was trying to meet Ethan thinking he could help. Or was he being lured into a trap?
It's certainly possible. But before we go down that road, we need to talk about another major development in the case, the discovery of Mark's body.
Oh, this is where the case takes a really dark turn. Weeks after the briefcase surfaces, a fisherman finds a body in the Passaic River miles from where Mark was last seen. It's Mark, but it's the cause of death that's particularly chilling.
The autopsy report paints a picture of a professional hit. No gunshot wounds, no blunt force trauma, just small puncture marks on his neck. The toxicology report was conclusive lethal dose of succinylcholine.
So what is succinylcholine exactly?
It's a powerful paralytic agent that causes rapid muscle paralysis.
Okay.
It's often used in medical settings for anesthesia, but in the wrong hands, it becomes a silent, deadly weapon, and it leaves virtually no trace in the body after death.
So someone with medical knowledge was involved? This wasn't just some random street crime, was it?
Exactly. It points to a level of premeditation and planning that's frankly terrifying.
Yeah.
Whoever wanted Mark silenced went to great lengths to make it look like something else entirely. But thankfully, they overlooked one crucial detail: the security footage from the marina near Pier 27.
Right, the footage that shows Mark nervously waiting at the pier and then an unmarked SUV pulls up. 3 men get out, one of them being Ethan Kessler. So it was a met-up. They lured him there under false pretenses.
It certainly seems that way. The footage shows a brief exchange between Mark and the men. Then he tries to run, but they catch him, force him into the SUV, and drive away. And remember that voicemail we talked about? It was sent just hours after this abduction.
So they snatched him, took him somewhere, interrogated him, and when he wouldn't talk, they injected him with the succinylcholine and dumped his body in the river.
That's the scenario that emerges from the evidence and Ethan Kessler's subsequent plea deal. He confessed to his role in the abduction and named the other 2 men involved, both of whom have since been arrested.
Okay, so we've got our perpetrators, but what about the motive? What was Mark about to expose that was worth killing him for? That's where things get really interesting. Remember that unsent message on the burner phone? It was addressed to someone named Zachary Reese.
Zachary Reese is the real mystery here. He's the missing piece of the puzzle. We know he tried to expose Grayson and Low Capital 2 years prior in 2022, but the details are scarce.
It's like he's a ghost in all of this. What happened to him? Was he silenced too? Did he meet a similar fate to Mark?
That's the question that haunts this entire case. Was Mark trying to pick up where Zachary left off? Was he trying to finish what Zachary started?
Yeah, it's a chilling thought to think that Mark might not be the only victim in this whole mess.
Right.
If Zachary Reese really did try to expose Grayson and Lowe back in 2022 and then suddenly disappeared, it makes you wonder just how far this company was willing to go to protect its secrets.
And it raises some serious questions about the dangers of whistleblowing.
Yeah.
We tend to think of whistleblowers as these heroic figures, but the reality is they often face incredible risks, even threats to their lives.
Right.
Mark's case tragically illustrates that point.
It makes you think twice about what you'd do if you were in his shoes. Right?
Hey.
On the one hand, you have this moral obligation to expose wrongdoing, but on the other hand, you're putting yourself in a very vulnerable position.
It's a moral dilemma with no easy answers. And it highlights the power dynamics at play. When you're going up against a massive corporation like Grayson & Lowe with vast resources and connections, it can feel like an impossible fight.
It's like David versus Goliath, except in this story, Goliath wins.
Sadly, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But even though Mark lost his life, his actions weren't in vain. He exposed a dark underbelly of corporate greed and ruthlessness, and that's something we shouldn't forget.
So what can we do? How do we fight back against these kinds of injustices?
For starters, we need to support investigative journalism, protect whistleblowers, and demand greater transparency from those in power. We can't allow these kinds of things to happen in the shadows.
It's about holding those in power accountable, right?
Yeah.
Not letting them get away with silencing dissent or covering up their wrongdoing.
Absolutely. And that starts with awareness. We need to be informed, engaged, and willing to speak out against injustice.
Mark's story is a wake-up call, a reminder that these kinds of things do happen and we can't just sit back and ignore them.
Exactly. We need to be vigilant because who knows how many other Mark Holloways or Zachary Reeses are out there silenced because they dared to speak truth to power.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We may never know the full truth about what happened to Zachary Reese or the extent of Grayson and Lowe's crimes, but one thing's for sure. Mark Holloway's case has shined a light on a very dark corner of the corporate world.
And his courage in the face of danger should inspire us all to fight for a more just and transparent world.
So what does this all mean? It means we have a responsibility to keep asking questions, to keep digging for the truth even when it's dangerous. And it means we need to stand up for those who are brave enough to speak out against wrongdoing. Mark Holloway may be gone, but his story lives on a reminder that the pursuit of justice is an ongoing fight.